Welcome to the Struggle Bus Family Podcast, where we share real stories from the messy, beautiful, exhausting, and joyful world of caregiving. We're here to build a community that supports, educates, and uplifts caregivers and families of individuals with disabilities and complex needs. Whether you're a parent, sibling, educator, or just someone who loves a caregiver, there's a seat for you on this bus. Welcome to the Struggle Bus Family. We created this podcast because caregiving can be isolating, but it doesn't have to be. We believe that by sharing our stories, we can create space for connection, healing, laughter, and maybe even a little hope. Hey, Jess, how you doing?
Hi, Joni. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing good too. Excited to be here today. I think this one's going to be pretty fun.
Yeah, I think so. We have a fun topic in store today, but I think we should start with our struggle, strive, and thrive.
Okay. Well, do you have any of those ready to go?
I do, as a matter of fact, have one, and it's a little bit of a teaser for an upcoming episode. So we did travel recently to Tennessee, and we may or may not have had a situation involving the police or 3 police cars, the ambulance, the mental health cooperative, and a couple of sets of neighbors, if not more. But that's all I'm going to share for now, and it hits all 3 categories, so you'll have to tune in to the next episode to hear.
Okay, I like the may or may not have part, but I think I can figure out the answer already. So.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, should we get into it then?
Let's do it.
Okay,
what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking about what it's really like to travel with our medically complex or neurodivergent children. The good, the hard, and what we've learned along the way. Glutton for punishment, just keep doing it. Right?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Well, maybe a good place to start is for each of us to share a recent trip or challenge or a meltdown, something. Sure. What's top of mind for you?
Well, so we took a trip. Our most recent trip was over spring break. We went to the Dallas area to take the kids to the zoo, which is kind of a common thing for us. And with 5 kids, and we'll get into this a little more and kind of how we survive that or try and survive that. We tend to not do hotels anymore. You can't avoid it sometimes, but we try not to do it. So we try and do Airbnbs. We like our own 4 walls because we're loud. Yeah, we're loud. So anyways, the interesting or fun, not fun, it wasn't fun. After the fact, it's funny, but the interesting part about this trip is, we get settled in, all that kind of stuff. We go off and do our thing for the day at the zoo and come back that night. Everyone gets, situated and goes to bed and all that kind of stuff. And that's all mostly good. And then I wake up in the morning to a swimming pool. There's like water all over the floor, and it's just like, yeah, and it's not just like, it's streaming out of the ceiling. Luckily, not on the bed. Like I would have drowned or something in my sleep. I don't know, but the floor is covered, and I think Eugene was in there with me too. So and he didn't see it at first. So he gets up and starts going. So now he's all wet, and it was just a disaster. So it was like the things you can't plan for, right? Which we'll get to also, I think, later. Yeah. But, you never plan on exiting your Airbnb after one evening when you had planned to be there for a week, right? So then it's like, well, what do? We have 5 kids and all this stuff. And I don't think we had Lucy we had boarded Lucy. So we have a golden doodle, as well. So I think we had boarded her, so we didn't have that to deal with. But it was a mess for sure. How about you? I know you talked about the trip that we'll talk about another time, but or are there elements of that trip you can talk about maybe?
We've traveled somewhat frequently. I like to be a bit nomadic. So for those of you who know me, we'll pop up in different places on the weekend or for a week at a time or so. But we did take a trip recently to Tennessee. Avery has been on long road trips like that one, which is 14 hours. He's also flown. which we'll talk a little bit about. So our trip home prior to this one, he and I did fly in for doctor's appointments and flew back, and that was mostly uneventful, but did come up with some tips and tricks.
That was the MRI visit we had talked about previously, right?
Yeah. Yep. So, yeah, we've hit the road a lot in the last few years, and I'm excited to share what I've learned, I think. And I know you are the master of tips and tricks along the way. So I've learned quite a bit from you, and I'm excited to share that, because I think that travel is intimidating for us with kids with special needs, because we often find that it's more tiresome than relaxing. It's a new environment. It's managing behaviors and medications and our stuff and their stuff and mobility and on and on and on, so on and so forth. So there's lots of reasons to feel intimidated or to feel like it's a chore, to do vacations or trips. But I don't let it deter us.
Yeah. I mean, you gotta get out there, right?
Yes.
So, okay. Well, so let's jump into it. So, in terms of like planning ahead, and how much prep to do and how far in advance. I mean, I know what we do. I mean, I can start, I guess, or if you want to start, it doesn't matter. But for us, so I'm chicken still. So we've never flown with all 5 kids ever.
Yeah.
The most we've flown with is, well, it can't be 3 because number 3 and 4 were twins. So I think the most we've ever flown with is 2, the 2 girls when they were little. And then I think individually, one of us has flown with like just Eugene or something like that. But the most kids we ever done was the 2 girls. So in terms of like what our prep looks like, so as a result of that, we drive everywhere. We road trip, and the kids do pretty good in the car. If we bring Lucy, she does pretty good too. The furthest we'll go. I mean, so we're in the middle of the country. For those that don't know, we're in Central Texas, and we'll drive to either West Coast or East Coast, kind of the extremes, right? We haven't gone all the way up north or anything like that. But so if you were to hop in the car and drive straight, our trips are, the shorter ones, but our longer trips are, I don't know, 16 to 26 hours if you're to go straight. Woo! So we tend to, I mean, if it's going to be like an 18, 19 hour, with no stops, so it tends to be longer because you make stops, we will tend to do that all in one shot. And that might be that we keep moving the whole time, just trade drivers, or we park at like a Flying J or Love's, travel stop place or whatever, and just try and like sleep for an hour or two, which never happens. So it's better to just keep going, in my opinion.
So let me ask you a quick question, since you're a road tripper. Are you a drive during the day, like leave early in the morning, or are you a drive at night, wait until it's closer to the kids' bedtimes?
No, we're a drive during the day. So the kids get up at the butt crack of dawn. I mean, the house starts making noise usually around 5 a.m. So if we're going to be up at 5 a.m., we're not leaving at like midnight. We're gonna do our damnedest to get everyone in that car and hit the road as soon as possible that morning. I mean, to the tune that the kids and us are eating breakfast in the car, right? Okay. So yeah, because there's just, especially like I just said, if we're gonna make a 20-hour road trip all in one shot, yeah, that's what we do. But I know you guys have a different game plan. So what's your strategy for those?
So we're opposites in that. Now, mind you, I have a 17-year-old and a 4-year-old. I mean, between us, we hit all ages, and it probably wouldn't matter. But, my second driver is a teenager, and Avery, of course, is the 4-year-old with special needs. I tend to prefer to drive overnight. Our trips most recently have been 14, 16 hours or so, depending on the weather. And we'll typically leave sometime between 4 and 6 p.m. And then we get there around, like wake up time the next morning. And we also try to do it in a straight shot. Right. Because I try to avoid hotel rooms with Avery as well. Yes. Even though he's one child of 2, it is not restful for me. It's a waste of time and money for me to stop at a hotel. So I'm a night driver. Both We don't always avoid traffic, but it does tend to be easier driving long term for me and for my son. And if Avery is sleeping, then he's not creating anxiety for my other driver. Because the child locks have to be on both back doors. He'll open the doors, the windows. He doesn't stay in his seat very well. He's still in a 5-point harness. So it just reduces the stress for Paxton.
Now, how do you prep for the trips? I mean, if we're taking turns, like I guess I'll start because I think your prep's a little more robust than mine, I'll say. I mean, so because we're road trippers primarily, and like I said, as much as possible, try and get Airbnb. So we get where we're going, we get settled, establish our home camp or whatever you want to call it, and then we're good, except for the excursion stuff. So for that, I actually have a plastic tote bin, little, maybe a 2 shoebox size thing. It's got all of my travel prep stuff in it. And we'll have links to Amazon affiliate links to a lot of the stuff in the description for this, and we'll put it on the webpage and put that link too out there. But in this thing, I've got first and foremost a Wi-Fi router. This is gonna sound weird.
It's our IT guy.
Yes, first and foremost, a Wi-Fi router that I can either plug into whatever hardline Ethernet internet, whatever they have at the Airbnb or hotel wherever we're going, or I can change the settings on it to connect to the Wi-Fi at the Airbnb. And the reason I do this is because what it then does is after connecting to their internet, it has the same Wi-Fi name and password as our home Wi-Fi.
Okay.
So what that means is not just, my devices or laptop if I'm going to be working or whatever, but all the kids' devices, the girls' Chromebooks, the boys' tablets, all that stuff that, you need to keep these guys occupied, especially at night if you want to try and sleep. I don't have to go and change a bunch of Wi-Fi and all that kind of junk, right?
Ooh, it's like that's a brilliant move.
We show up and take inventory of the house, whatever, see if there's any damage we need to flag with the owners or management company, whatever. And then my first task is, and put away all the kitchen knives. My first task after all that is set up this Wi-Fi router so that, okay, kids, you can go in there and they can be busy doing something while we're unloading the car or unpacking or trying to figure, if it's like a late night that we get there, trying to figure out what the hell we're going to get food-wise to feed these kids before we try and get them down for bed, all that stuff. So that's my, if you have more than, a couple devices, that's my number one tip for us at least. And aside from that, I've got door and window alarms. I've got double stick foam tape to put the door and window alarms on the doors and the windows. I've got door latches for like sliding doors. If the house that we're staying at has a pool in the backyard, that way I can make sure the boys can't get out there without us knowing. Extra batteries for you name it. Got a few Amazon Fire Sticks in there for all the TV apps we have at home, be it like Disney Plus or YouTube or, and for the grownups, we use DirecTV. So there's a DirecTV app on there so we can get our normal TV experience on the road that we have at home. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I mean, that's, and I have separate phone and tablet chargers for everything that are in there. So that way it's not like, okay, we're on the road. It's like, oh crap, I forgot my watch charger. Or I didn't bring enough tablet chargers for all the boys' tablets or whatever. It's a separate set that's just there and stays there even if we're at home. We don't dip in any of that kind of stuff. So
a couple of quick things that you brought up for me. One is, so if you've been following us, you know that the kids don't have free access to their tablets at Johnny's. So it's a treat for them to have their iPads or tablets that are their gaming, YouTube, whatever, you name it. Really, it's like 4 different versions of Blippi if you count Avery too. The same episodes, just at different points, and they all get rewound and played a million times. However, that's a treat for them. So one, you're giving, there's some I'll say novelty. It's not really a novelty. It's just something they really want all the time that they get on a special occasion. And so that works really effectively when you first get there for unloading. I know for me, one of my biggest challenges is, where's Avery? Like, he'll be inside, he'll be outside, he's going upstairs, he's curious, he's climbing on the counter. Having something that can occupy them when you first get there is really helpful.
Yes.
The other thing is, a lot of us probably don't have as many devices as you have because you're looking at 3 talkers, 5 iPads minimum. You have 2 phones. April has a phone. Like, we're talking a ton of devices. Yep. So along with the Wi-Fi router, a great thing is probably something that you can use to charge all of those at one time that doesn't take all the outlets in the house.
Yeah, and actually the thing I use takes one outlet, and it's got, I don't know, a dozen or more USB ports on it.
Yeah, so I think that's great. I always travel with 2 computers, an extra monitor, a couple or few iPads, and charging them or keeping them charged is always my biggest challenge because they're rotating between people. It's a backup, so I'll be ordering one of those.
Well, yeah, and as you mentioned, our kids not having tablets or devices all the time. I think that was in the Tap to Talk AEC episode. Episode 3 or 4 or something like that. I'll dig it up. But so like I said, they'll get those as soon as we walk in the door to keep them occupied while all the other stuff happens. But in general, the boys at least don't get their tablets even while we're traveling. They don't get them except for at night.
Okay.
And that's 2 reasons. One, so that we can sleep while they're entertained. Mm-hmm. And I know we'll get to the how they sleep in a minute too.
Yeah.
Because that's huge. That's a big one. And then because they have them all night, then I have to charge them, which is during the day. So that's why they don't get it during the day when we travel. Yeah. So I don't know. Should we go into the how they sleep, or maybe a little more prep? I mean, because I know you do more prep, like especially with the medical stuff.
So Avery is more medically complex, and we have had a handful of experiences when we travel where he gets hurt, he gets sick, I've needed care in that town. It's more than carrying around an insurance card and a health summary with him. So for me, and I keep copies of this for school, for IEP meetings, for going to a new doctor, new specialist, or just to have on hand with a babysitter if I need to share that information. I do a full printout of prescriptions, medical conditions, providers with contact information, health history, and it's basically a folder that goes in a hospital bag. And maybe you think it's a little funny that I carry a hospital bag, but we have had a few trips, one specifically in Jacksonville, or oh my gosh, I'm forgetting where we went. It wasn't quite Jacksonville, but we were about an hour away, and Avery had a bleeding episode. So this is when he had acute ITP. We were in 2 or 3 different hospitals. He's also fallen off of hotel beds, and which resulted in what I thought was broken noses. And it's like, do we go to the hospital? Is the bleeding controlled? So I always have like a bag that has some medical supplies in it. So your first aid kits, like general things if he gets hurt that I need to be able to take care of, and medications for fevers, like kind of your normal stuff that you could probably go buy once you get there, but you might need it before.
So if this is like your in case of emergency hospital bag, like if you need to go to the ER or whatever while you're traveling, do you keep separate, like a change of clothes in that for you and him or anyone else, separate from your like normal clothing that you pack for the trip?
Yes. Yeah. So I always have enough pull-ups, Pediasures, cup, wipes, clothes for me and him should we be hospitalized for one night. I usually have 2 nights of stuff because the first night is all the doctors figuring out who he is and stabilizing whatever the emergency, is. And then the biggest challenge is his medication, right? Because medication's typically packed separately. So depending on what his health state has been recently, sometimes I'll separate that and go ahead and pack it in the bag so that I've got it. Other times I'll just take the entire medication tray with me. But I look like a seasoned professional when I get to the hospital because I'm ready for whatever they're going to throw at us.
Yes. Wow. Okay. And for the medication, so I'm going to ask specifically about the medications because I have a way I do this when we travel too. Do you? So I'll say, so for when we travel, having multiple kids that take multiple medications multiple times a day, multiple. I got these they're like pill sorters, right? But there's multiple compartments for each day. Not only are there multiple compartments for each day, but each compartment for the day can like snap out of this larger frame. And we'll have a link to this also for Amazon. But when we travel, especially if it's going to be like a 3-4 day trip or whatever, I won't bring this big honking pill tray. I'll pop out the relevant days and throw those smaller compartments in a Ziploc with, like in Eric's case, I have to have applesauce pouches to get him to take one of his medications, or I have to wedge pills between gummy bears. So I'll put the applesauce pouches and gummy bears and stuff in that same Ziploc, and that's what I carry in my backpack that I carry with has my laptop and stuff in it.
Okay.
Do you guys do the same thing, or you just bring the giant bottles, or how do you?
Some liquid medications,
okay.
which I have not determined the best way to travel for those. I have tried pre-measuring with syringes but that
Gets messy.
inevitably results in a mess. I've brought entire bottles. I try to get duplicates of prescriptions for non-controlled substances so that we've got enough. And then, of course, he has an emergency seizure medication that I have 2 of, but during the school year, one's at school. So it's a lot of coordinating to make sure, like, the medication itself is probably one of the biggest planning things for me. But that's because it is difficult to sort out day by day. Now, my medications, I do what you do and use an individual daily container. But I still, because we've had vacations with Avery where it's extended beyond the time or it's cut short, I've found that it's safer just to bring everything because I have had trouble getting prescriptions in different states unless you're going through a hospital. But even then, sometimes you can only get enough of something, to get through like your time there. It won't cover when you get back or so, that's like thinking through medication and medical things on the front end, but that's a matter of making it a part of your routine when you go to office visits and things. If there are things that change, it's easier just to have that stuff updated than to wait until you're planning a trip. Because even though I spend a little bit more time on the planning piece, I'm probably more spontaneous and like, hey, I'm going to leave. We're going on vacation. We're going to be gone for the weekend, or we're going to be gone, like a Thursday through a Tuesday or something. And I'll plan it days before, or we'll have an upcoming trip and I'll be like, okay, let's go ahead and leave 2 days early or something. So I'm definitely.
That didn't happen recently at all, did it?
No, maybe it did. But yeah, but you get in the routine of these things and it becomes kind of part of the process. So you're planning and you're getting prepared, but I've also learned that I can't plan or prepare for everything. So I do the best I can. And then I make sure that there are resources around me wherever we're booking.
Right.
I have made the mistake of booking too far out of town where even like Ubers don't give rides. And for us, that's okay. I'm lugging a car seat along for my Uber trips, and that's not convenient either. So, location's important, and I'm a light packer. So Avery and I share a suitcase, and we have a second suitcase that's exactly the same for kind of all the other things. And then we'll have a backpack in our hotel bag. So I say a light packer, but my goal when I get to an airport is to only check what's absolutely necessary. And if I can get away with not checking it, when I travel on my own, I do not check bags. We'll do that. Yeah. So it's really down to the essentials and finding things that we can repurpose for other needs or wants or desires on the trip, and then only taking necessities.
Yeah, I think that's a good tip too in terms of checking baggage or not, because I've had experiences, just me traveling without the kids where they've lost bags and I didn't get them back for a week and a half.
Yeah.
Right. So, and if you have medically fragile or special needs or disabled children that have things that they need, or that you as a parent or caregiver need to keep that child content or happy or contained or whatever, that's a critical thing that for me, I'd be concerned about putting into check luggage.
Yes.
I want to keep mine to me, those are necessities. I want to keep those with me or on me.
Yes.
Right. The whole time.
And we both still use strollers. So even your older boys who are almost 12, they're almost
Yes.
12.
Yeah.
One of them walks. Eli walks. He pushes. He's a big help.
Yep.
Eric still sits in the stroller and the baskets.
Yep.
You know, between us, you've got a double stroller. I have a single stroller. Our stroller goes on every trip with us. If it is not to somewhere he is familiar, like a family trip. I didn't take it with us this last trip to Tennessee, but anytime I travel anywhere unfamiliar, his stroller is his safe space. We have to take it.
Well, so even though you didn't take it on this last trip, were there any times where you're like, oh, I wish I brought it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's just anytime we're going somewhere that's new, we didn't stay at a new place this time, but just from a mobility standpoint, we can't plan things where there's walking for long distances, or I mean, even just carrying a bag out and about, like to have a
Right.
stroller to put it on is really nice. So
Yeah, for sure.
the stroller is definitely a staple, and it helps him feel more comfortable and safe. Like even to the beach, we have to take the stroller to the beach because sometimes it takes him a while to warm up to the ocean and the sand. So by taking his stroller, it gives him a safe space to relax, even if he's just taking a nap. Yeah, it's a little bit more work, but it's worth it.
Right. Okay. Now, in terms of getting from A to B, and we've talked about kind of the prep and the planning and a little bit of the execution in terms of how you do that prep or packing, kind of strategically, But how else do you prep? I mean, like I said, we tend to do Airbnbs now, but for a while, especially when the kids were smaller, and we didn't think it'd be as noticeable. Like, oh, there's 7 people in one hotel room, or 7 people and a dog in one hotel room. Um, I wouldn't necessarily call ahead to the hotel. I think mainly because I was concerned about tipping my hand, so to speak, of like, hey, we're inbound to your hotel, and you're probably not going to want us there. so so I'd wait until we got there and I was checking in, and then I mean there might be I might book when I book I might look for like an accessible room or a ground floor room, which I would always ask for a ground floor room because inevitably the boys, especially tromping around the room, whoever's in the room below us is going to hear it, right? So but other than that, when I check in, I would mention, okay, we've got several children who have disabilities. There might be some challenges with noise or whatever, just to kind of lay that groundwork with the folks at the front desk
Yes.
ahead of time. And like I said, I would never do that on the phone before we actually got there. I'd always do it
When you get
when I
there.
got there. And I don't know that I necessarily needed to, but that's just kind of what I felt, was needed. Having traveled before adopting that strategy, and having someone, pounding on our door who's, an employee of the hotel, not just the person in the room next to us at 2 a.m. is just not a pleasant experience. So, I mean, are there other things you'll do ahead of time in that regard?
Yeah, so we for Airbnbs, um, I have tried hotels in every shape, form, and fashion, just between medical appointments and hospitalizations, and then, fun travel, family travel. Hotels feel like one of the most dangerous places to stay, and it is the least restful. It's a new space. He doesn't want to go to sleep. There's no safety bed that I can put him in. There's not, he will walk out the door. If there's a balcony, you have to make sure not only that the door's locked, but there's something that keeps the door from opening. It's just a lot of work and stress, and then worried, like, I don't want to go through and put locks on things in the hotel room. I don't want to
Yeah,
worry
you're saying
about
just for
him.
one night, right?
Yeah, if it's one night or a couple nights or something, Airbnbs are easier. Now, I've found with Airbnbs, you almost need a separate checklist to make sure that the place is safe, because I like to stay in off the beaten path kind of places. And I mean, we've stayed at an Airbnb in Vermont that the stairs were open on the bottom, but you don't fall one floor, you fall 2 floors. So that was a huge safety concern. There were no gates. Avery wasn't quite as mobile as he is now, but he's always curious, and he he can find a way to get from one spot to another, and he's not always loud when he's doing it. So,
Right.
that just there's no floor when there's open stairs like that. There's no floor necessarily that's safer than another, because he can get hung in the stairs. It's very difficult to keep our kids safe.
Yes.
We have to get creative sometimes. But Airbnbs tend to be a little bit more flexible. I feel like I can relax a little bit more. The noise concern when he is awake, or if he's up all night long and we have to sleep in the next morning or something, like, it just gives us a little bit more flexibility.
Right.
I also find that it's easier to apply the things like the door, window alarms, or things like they're made for a house in a house design, so it's much easier to install and take those down. I would say finding the place or deciding on where to stay, because that even applies, like, we have friends in Florida, we have friends in Atlanta, and when we stay at someone else's house, like, that gets more challenging, so it's less appealing, because I feel like that also creates more work for me. So finding the right place is probably the biggest challenge, I think, with traveling, especially traveling with my style, which is kind of pick up and go.
Yeah. Okay. And then, so what about, since you've flown with Avery? So I know there's we're not big flyers, like I said, but there's the TSA Cares program, which I don't have personal experience, but if you contact them in advance, they can help you plan your travel arrangements and kind of guide you through the process and what accommodations are available to you. I think both in terms of security checkpoint stuff, priority boarding once you're at the gate, and those sorts of things. But what's been your experience?
So I hate taking all of the stuff through security
But you also
getting
hate checking bags.
I do. So back to kind of the minimalist packing thing, I really try to stick to necessities. And I like to get to the airport at the time to get through security and to walk onto the plane when I'm done.
Not
It's a
demanding at all, are you?
dangerous game we play sometimes. But I haven't personally used TSA Cares. I have contacted the airline in advance. In this particular case, it was Southwest. It was a direct flight. And I let them know I was bringing a child with disabilities. The most easily relatable thing for us is autism, that he's non-speaking, seizure risk, like, just kind of ran through some of the things. So we typically always try to board first. That reduces anxiety for him. It reduces anxiety for me. It reduces wait time. And it gives me the chance to kind of feel out, like, who's coming onto the plane after, because, Southwest is free seating, so you pick your seat. I try to let people know. So, like, the flight attendant will know, like, when you're passing out snacks, like, I've brought snacks, please don't offer them because he can't eat solid foods. Or, if someone comes to sit down by me, I try to figure out the seating arrangement and let people know. So I've actually had a very positive experience being kind of forward and open and honest about it. Because at first glance, I don't think you would correlate Avery and a disability. It's not something that is so obvious until you would know pretty quick. He's non-speaking. He's not going to talk back unless you're thinking, oh, well, he just doesn't talk to strangers. But it's apparent after a few minutes, I would say. But, first glance going onto a plane, you're going to say, oh my God, there's a baby or a toddler on the plane. You won't know that there are some sensory issues, or if it's a full flight, or so I find that talking about it, we don't need any, like, special concessions, but I do try to make it as easy as possible for him to transition from security to the gate, to the airplane, and then and mindful enough that when someone is coming in, like, this is what, you're sitting beside us, this is our situation, I just want to make sure you're okay with it before you throw your bag in the overhead.
Well, and to that end, like I said, we're not big flyers, although that may change. But I know of another family that we know whose son has Angelman's, and they'll prepare these little, I'll say, care packages. It's got, snacks and a picture of their son and a little blurb, hi, my name is so and so. I have Angelman's. This is kind of, just so they kind of know what's going on and what to expect. And they prepare enough of these for, I think, all the people who kind of immediately sit around them on the plane. And I want to say the flight staff too, flight attendants and such too, just so they're aware too. And I mean, whenever talking about it, they always say, oh, it does a really good job of preparing everyone and kind of letting everyone know what to expect, so that inevitably, if there are, issues or what have you, or challenges in flight, that at least people know what's going on. I'm sure you'll still get the stink eye people, right? But I mean, it's like, hey, this is what's going on. He has no control over it. We try and manage as much as possible, but just so you know, something may happen, and you might have a front row seat to it. And here's some snacks to compensate you, right? But
It,
like driving, for us as drivers, um, unless we have, the dog with us, the main concern in terms of like breaks and how we manage that time is, okay, how much have the kids had to eat or drink? Do we need to like maybe stop and check diapers, or are we as drivers tired, or, need caffeine or whatever?
mm-hmm.
Other than that, we just try and plow as far and as long as we can in a shot.
Yeah.
I assume you're similar, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't plan stops. I don't plan meals. We take it as the ride comes. And if we've driven and had trips that were, 20 hours that
Mm-hmm.
took 3 days because life just didn't cooperate. So we had to slow
Right.
down. And then we've had trips that have been, 14, 15 hours. We've stopped several times and we still made up time and we made it. So
Right.
I I just don't plan until I really don't do a lot of planning for the trip itself beyond, prepping for the things that we need. I kind of feel like that absorbs most of my travel brain energy.
Yeah. 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 Which is why I have that box or tote that's like, okay, it's just there. It's set aside in the closet for when we go, and then when we get home, it goes back there. I may put new batteries in it or something, whatever. Okay, so one of the strategies that's really helped the most for us, because this is supposed to be a vacation, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's supposed to be relaxing and enjoyable and restful and rejuvenating, right? How the hell do you sleep? So for us, we have the girls do pretty good, especially if they have their Chromebooks. They'll go off into a room in the Airbnb and they'll be teenage girls and do whatever they do. I don't want to know. The boys, though, if left to their own devices, they'd be all over the place. Probably escape the Airbnb in the middle of the night, which we wouldn't know about, which is why I talked about those door and window alarms and all those sorts of things. But the number one parent caregiver sanity, being able to sleep at night tip I have is, so we have three boys. Each boy has his own 1 or 2 person tent. Okay. And this is going to sound weird, probably, but you guys all understand the struggle's real.
Stick with this. I've tried this.
Okay, yeah, yes. So I want to hear how that went too. So, the 1 or 2 person tent. So there's like the door for the tent. There's like the zipper, and then two more, right? Okay. Well, where the three zippers meet in the middle, there's that little loop in the zipper
Yep.
handle or pull. I'll put a zip tie through those and pull it almost all the way tight. I leave a little bit of slack just so I can get like scissors or something in there to cut it in the morning, or if we need to get them out for some reason in the middle of the night. But each boy goes into his own tent, so there's no fighting. One, they're contained, especially with the zip tie.
Yes.
Two, they have their own tent, so there's no fighting over, your tablet. My tablet died, and you still have one that has a charge. I'm going to steal yours, and I'm going to beat the crap out of you to get it, or scratch your face to get it, or whatever. So they get this is when they get their tablets with internet access. They get cars, stuffed animals, whatever it is that boy likes the most. And they're usually happy as a clam. I mean, we'll wake up in the morning. I found Eric's tent across the room and upside down, or whatever. But he's in there. He's safe. He was entertained, and I got to sleep.
Yes.
How about? So you tried this recently, I think.
So I did, and I'll I'll share that Avery does have a safety bed at home. So every night he's used to going into a safe, controlled environment that he can't get out of, he can't hurt himself in.
Right.
He is a wanderer, and he can self-harm. He's a very active little boy. I mean, otherwise he's active, he's busy, but he will not go to sleep. So he knows that his bed is his safe space. So when we traveled this last time, I did try to no end to get him to go to sleep. Hours and hours into this exercise, I'm like, I have to do something. I didn't do all the driving, but it was a long drive.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. I'm working. I've got him in a new environment. He doesn't have a place to shut down or associate that's like home where he can lay down and go to sleep.
Right.
And you can tell our kids a million times till you're blue in the face to lay down and go to sleep. They are going to do whatever pops into their heads at that moment. It is not controllable. And this also reduces like the number of times that he's fallen out of a bed, or he's climbed out of a crib and fallen and hit his head, or he's been stuck in something, whether it's a lamp, a drawer, you name it. Like, yeah, because he loves doors and drawers, so he'll open and close those. Well, if he falls and gets stuck, like it's a catastrophe in the moment. But we tried the tent, and he did not love it at first.
Right.
But then I did give him his tablet in the tent, and he had blankets and just things that he knew. I did not have to zip tie the tent because he couldn't undo the zippers yet. So that was great. I didn't love it because we didn't have the space for it. Like we were tripping over it. He was knocking it over. It was a pain in the ass, but at night I got to sleep and he got to sleep.
That's the goal.
And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about this in another episode, but containing our kids who like to wander and have no concept of fear or safety is probably one of our biggest concerns and frustrations and just sources of grief. Because if you've ever lost your child and had your eyes off of them for 2 seconds, it is very, very scary.
Yes.
So I've tried it. Give a stamp of approval. I wish, and maybe they exist and we haven't come across them yet, but I do wish we could find like some kinds of safety tents or something designed for people with special needs, because there may be some things like access to it,
right?
That where you wouldn't have to use like zip ties.
I like that a lot. So, so I didn't know you were going to say that, but if any of you guys out there make tents and want to partner with us on this idea,
yeah, we'd love that.
Yeah, totally. That's a good idea. Well, so any advice for someone who hasn't, like first time caregiver parent with special needs kids, that either would like to try traveling or, need something coming and they need to travel, but they haven't done it before with their kiddos. Any advice you have for them?
Yes. So travel has changed for me and my family dramatically in the last 2 years, but I still love to travel, and that's something that I hope Avery will come to enjoy. He's such a happy child most of the time. I want to be able to travel and know that his safety is covered. The one thing that I would say is don't create or hold on to expectations of experience for your trip. You can plan all day long or for weeks or months or whatever. Yeah. Inevitably, something is not going to go as planned. And that's probably true for even people with children without special needs or traveling without special needs.
Yep.
But whatever, whether it's like the zoo or the aquarium or a restaurant, there have been so many times that there's something that I think Avery might enjoy, and it's been exactly the opposite. Or he's been in great health lately, and then something pops up that becomes life-threatening quickly. if I let those things deter me from traveling or affect the overall, experience, we probably wouldn't travel. I mean, honestly. So I plan to whatever degree I can for safety. I plan for things to do for Paxton that don't feel like the trip is always about, taking care of his brother.
Yeah.
But once we get there, we eliminate expectations of how it should go or what we think should happen. And we try to go with the flow.
Right.
And without sharing too much, we have traveled together. We traveled together with another family.
Yep.
We had many, many kids, and we did it kind of on a whim, I'll say. So we'll tell you more. We'll share more about that experience later. But actually, I know your advice, so I'm gonna pass it to you to share your advice. My advice is don't set yourself up for heartache or disappointment with expectations once you're there. Be nimble.
And my advice for those that are looking to travel for the first time with theirs, especially these kiddos, is it really kind of dovetails, is to just do it.
Yes.
Right. I mean, for all the reasons you just said, it's exceptionally easy to convince ourselves that, oh, this is going to be too much, or
Yes.
I can't do this, or he or she is going to get into this or get into that, or this is going to happen, that might happen. I mean, you could go through all the what ifs, right? But at the end of the day, you just got to do it.
Mhm.
And that's the way you learn what works for you, for your kid or children, if you have multiples. Like the tent thing is, for me, is still our saving grace. That was only like in the last, I don't know, a couple of years.
Yeah.
Right. And as you said, the twins are going to be like 12 in a month, which is crazy to think about. But, but I mean, shoot, had that idea like materialized sooner, then who knows where we'd be. Right. So yeah, just do it.
Just do it.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe Nike will pick you up.
Or sue me, one or the other, right?
Yeah. We would love to hear your travel stories.
Yeah.
We would love for you to ask us questions. We shared some tips and tricks and resources, tools, some Amazon affiliate links. So we'll make sure that everything's included for this episode. And if you don't feel like we covered enough, let us know that too, because there's a lot to unpack when it comes to traveling, and we love your interaction. So please submit questions. Please submit your stories. Let us know if you try any of the things that we recommend. We don't mind if you tell us it's shit, or you can tell us it's fantastic. Either way, we want to hear.
Brutal honesty, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in addition to the, questions or stories, not just about traveling, but in general. I mean, if you have ideas for future topics or questions, that you have, like, oh, have you guys ever encountered this situation, or whatever, we'd love to hear all of it. So with that,
thanks for riding
the bus. Yeah. Whether you're road tripping, flying, or just planning the possibility, you're not alone.
We'll see you next time.